between Europe and multiple regions of the United States. She develops an early sensitivity to movements, cultural transition, and shifting notions of home, experiences that will continue to inform her work. Herndon works in paint-based media and interdisciplinary media. Early exposure to European Baroque and Italian painting traditions, combined with artistic developments across diverse geographic contexts, has shaped her sustained interest in figuration, atmosphere, and constructed space. Her work often situates the figure within symbolic or architectural environments that reference both historical painting traditions and contemporary narrative strategies. Drawing from a life marked by migration and adaptation, Herndon approaches painting as a means of exploring memory, identity, and spatial transformation. In addition to her studio practice, Herndon maintains an active teaching practice in fine arts. She approaches this classroom as an extension of a studio practice in research, emphasizing technical rigor, visual literacy, and conceptual development. Ashley.
Thank you all for being here and engaging with the work with me. I will let you in on a little personality secret. I'm incredibly long-winded. So for your sanity, I prepared some notes on my phone, so that's why I'll be glancing down to make sure I stay on track. I think that my work began when I was super little. I remember having memories of just being in the car and holding my wrist up in the sunlight and just being fascinated and watching how the light reflects off of my wrist, creating this super high contrast moment. It was something that I did all the time. I was always so obsessed with that darn light on body, on skin. And of course, growing up in Europe, I had access to museums like the Louvre and the museums in London where I would see these Baroque paintings of kings. And I would notice that same light on them, on their armor, on their medals, on their sword. That beam of light would be there. Some of my favorite painters, Caravaggio and Rembrandt, they would have this extremely dark atmosphere and this divine light that swirls around them. That light chose them. So from an early age, I think that I recognized that the body can, one, hold a story. It can tell a story of nations of people. It can tell stories of spirituality. And I also learned that light on the body can give that body royalty, give that body importance. So that's a constant aesthetic through line in my work, is the light on the body to give it that authority and royalty and have it tell some sort of story for me. So since very young age, I invented this woman character who could really embody any role that I wanted, any story that I wanted to tell. I could cast this woman in her, cast this woman in the story. After I learned that I could cast this woman in my stories and have her embody any message, my most current work is about ascent. It's about transcendence. I named my most current body of work How to Fly, and that's less of an instruction manual and more of a question that I'm exploring in this work. It's a metaphorical question. This collection of work is not necessarily about, like I said, an instruction manual, but inviting the viewer to consider what it means to transcend and rise, what that looks like, what does it feel like to transcend something. So all of these works are me exploring those questions. All the works feature a woman at some stage of transcendence, before transcendence, after, in the throes of transcendence or transformation. I'll that's meant to represent labor, work, the intensity of trying to get someplace higher, to transcend or transform. And the figure above, she completely contrasts that. She is in a complete, almost complete state of rest above these figures who represent labor. I see this woman as an embodiment of what it means to live in this parallel world with chaos, but rise above it. In her body, there are these seams that run through the composition, and I see those seams as this chaotic world sort of breaking into her space. And for me, that reminds me that when you're trying to separate, I'll speak for myself. When I'm trying to separate myself from chaos, I often forget that you can't completely do that. That chaotic world is living parallel to you, to me, and you can never completely separate yourself, but that rest amongst chaos is still worth it to me. So each work is really just seeing this woman through her spiritual journey of transcendence, of trying to rise above or already being above, whatever that means to the viewer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley, for talking about your work with us. So this is also the Q&A section for the talk. I have questions for you. I was wondering, because you were inviting viewers to reflect on what does transcendence mean to them, but to you as an artist, what does, or like for you, what does transcendence mean to you?
You might be underwhelmed by the answer. I think that transcendence to me is a light form of escapism during these chaotic times. I find how I mentally cope with that is to disconnect from the world. I indulge in Netflix and In-N-Out Burger, cookies, cakes, a glass of wine, a conversation with my mother. These are all small acts that I use to escape from the chaos that's happening around me. And I notice that when I come back to the real world, I feel refreshed and stronger and even more prepared to confront the chaos head on. So the chaos, I think, represents, I don't know, politics, terrible relationships, work concerns, and transcendence for me are those moments where you can have a breath of fresh air. Yeah, but I do want viewers to have their own relationship with my paintings as well. My paintings are trying to have a conversation with you. What is your chaos? What is your transcendence? Is transcendence even necessary for you? Do you just want to live below in the chaos? Is that great for you? So that's the conversation that I want to have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Ashley?
I'm not really familiar with your work, actually, and I see that the palette of these works is more monochromatic than what you were doing, let's say, in the works that we have seen in your studio. Could you speak a little bit about that choice or that decision to, in a way, kind of subtract color?
So the monochromatic color scheme in your work.
Yes, so if you're familiar with my work is typically very bright color language. I love like these putrid bright greens and oranges, which you can see just a tiny bit in the work on the outside wall and maybe the one in the back. I intentionally went monochromatic. I wanted to strip that color away for this because there's something about that monochromatic palette that feels more calm and a little bit less whimsical. I think that when you're chasing, you know, transcendence, there's a whimsical, you know, frolicking sort of attitude that you can have towards it, but it can also, that work, that effort can also be laborious and rough, melancholy. So I wanted to use this monochromatic palette as a way to sort of bring some drama or show the other side, the less whimsical side of chasing this transcendence that I'm talking about.
Could you tell us about the relationship between these three paintings compositionally? It sort of reminds me of a triptych, like maybe those two have a relationship to the center.
So the relationship in terms of the placements of these three works together.
They do function sort of like a triptych. They're not the same picture, but I wanted the work to feel spiritual. Some of the shapes that I'm abstracting here, like these portals or these windows around the figures, I was inspired by the windows or the caveats that you see in cathedrals. It hints at a more spiritual place, not necessarily religious all the time, but a sacred space of peace. So as far as the through line of all of these pieces, the figure has a separated relationship between the chaos and the chaos that's happening in the bottom. In this drawing, the chaos at the bottom is floating cows and, you know, businessmen wondering what the hell is going on. But there's also a sense of calm, this, you know, observing figure, you know, looming over the scene. Everyone seems to be okay that cows are floating. You know, that's the contrast that I want to place right next to each other. Still hinting at chaos and peace. These things coexist and cannot fully be separated. Same thing with the semicircle piece. There's chaos going around, but again, those seams almost break open the figure, reminding the viewer that, again, the chaos and peace, they run parallel. We can see that in our own political landscape at the moment. This last piece, sure, this confident, beautiful, striding, almost Venus-like figure, she, in my eyes, represents that peace and that confidence, but the small figures below her, the floating man, the women behind her inside of that portal, they represent that labor. So I think that's the through line between all of the pieces.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions for Ashley? Thank you, Ashley.